Good morning, everybody. Welcome to my channel. My name is Tanya. For those of you who are new here, welcome. Hi. And as you guys are coming in, if you could hit the like button, or if you're watching this on a replay, hashtag replay, and hit the like button if you guys could, that would be great. Just want to let you guys know I'm going to drop the link in the chat if you guys want to become a member of the channel. We'd love to have you. Let me paste that really quick in there for you guys. And last but not least, thank you so much for being with me today, spending a little bit of time with me. Let me grab my notes here, get them all together. Hi, Isabel. Hi, Crime with Kay. Yeah, it might be a shorter, or I might be a smaller group today, you know, because it's a different topic. But I do have a live on the Idaho 4 tomorrow. And then today we're doing Alex Murdaugh, just trying to kind of, you know, switch it every other day, kind of do something different, you know, so that way it's not repetitive, I feel like, because there's always stuff coming out in both cases. So today we are going to go over, I have two Nancy Grace podcasts, but I'm going to see how the first one goes, and then we'll see if we play both of them, because they are both pretty long. So they're both like an hour a piece. So we'll see how it goes, and then we'll see. Maybe I'll either do them both now, or like this morning, or I'll come back and I'll do one this afternoon. But we are going to hear about his financial crimes and how the judge, let me add her to stream, and how we're going to hear about his financial crimes and how the judge decided to allow that into the courtroom. Could this be like his motive for these killings? Could it be financial motivation? I think maybe. Witnesses come forward to talk about how he acted at the workplace. They say that he kept different hours. He was chatty, but his work colleagues knew there was something off about him. So I feel like everybody that comes in contact with him probably felt like that. But nobody probably admitted it to him. That man had too much money and power. Also, they talk about the Mallory. They talk about how Murdaugh hid money from Maggie's name because the Mallory Beach situation. So how he was hiding money from her. If you don't know about that situation, about the Mallory Beach, like homicide or incident, I don't know what you guys would consider that. I consider it a homicide. If you don't know about it, it was Paul Murdaugh, which is Alex Murdaugh's son, was driving a boat when it crashed and it killed Mallory Beach, which was, and I believe she was 19 years old. It was an awful situation. So they were suing the Murdaughs while they're suing Paul. So that's why he was trying to get money out of his name into his wife's name. That's what I was hearing when I was listening to the podcast yesterday. But I don't understand how if Alec was like fond, like putting money into his wife's name, their marital, wouldn't it be the same because they're married? Like their marital, like assets would be together. I would think. And they were suing Paul, I believe, not like, so they weren't even suing Alex Murdaugh. So I don't know why he would. I mean, I could see it being damaging to their reputation, I guess, but not really knowing why he would have to kill his son over that. I'm going to try to blow this up a little bit because it looks kind of weird on the screen. On my screen, it does anyway. Oh, maybe. Sometimes it likes to do it. Sometimes it doesn't. I think it's the operator. It's not the actual. Yeah, it's just me. Never mind. Look, now I'm just messing stuff up behind me. There we go. Stop doing that. Anyways. I'm wondering where all the money went. It was a lot of money. It was a lot. It was like total was more than $2.8 million. Also witnesses from his workplace, they were questioning the numbers not matching at the law firm. They were aware of just how, they weren't aware of just how much he was taking or stole until she started digging, and he was stealing in the millions. She probably thought a couple $100,000, maybe thousands. Nope, it was millions. That's insane to me. on. My one eye's not working good with it now. If you are just joining us, don't forget to like the video, please. If you could, hashtag replay. If you're watching this on a replay, that would be great. So yeah, the total amount that he stole was $2.8 million. After the murders, because they happened when this was going on, he had the whole week off. And he was, so when this all happened, the homicides happened because, after the murders, he took the whole week off and no one was worrying about, the missing fees in that time. So I think that it could have been to try to create a diversion because he was stealing all of that money. But I mean, you just got to be kind of dumb to think that no one's going to catch, like you're not going to get caught. Let me share my screen again. I accidentally hit a button, exit out of it. You know me, I do that all the time. This is a new thing that's doing. I don't know why it's doing that. But yeah, so, and also they talk about the raincoat that was found on the third floor of his mother's home. And it was about a week after the murders, they found the jacket. So, and the residue that they found on the outside and the inside of the jacket, they were talking about it was gunshot residue on the inside, I believe. So, this will be all over this and the blah. Nancy will go over all of this in the first video. If I could get that out of my mouth there. I wanted to try to blow this up for you. There we go. It's doing it a little bit now. Like I said, it's the operator. It's not the actual computer. But it does say up here, jurors in the Alex Murdaugh murder trial finally hear from CFO of the law firm where Murdaugh was a partner. Jeanne Seckinger told the jury that she had a tense meeting with the lawyer over settlement money that the law firm had collected, which was missing. The total amount was more than $2.8 million. In less than 12 hours, Murdaugh's wife and son were fatally shot. It says, also on the stand today, South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, SLED, forensic scientist Megan Fletcher discussed the gunshot residue she found on Alex Murdaugh's blue tarp-like raincoat. The raincoat was found on the third of his mother's home about a week after the murders. Residue was found on the outside and inside of the jacket. Testimony was also given on test run on Murdaugh's shoes. And oh man, did he wear the brightest color pair of shoes I've ever seen in my life to have on? Did you see the shoes that they held up in court? Those things were they were bright, y'all. I was trying to read the comments. But yeah, so I don't know. That's just so weird to me. I think that's for the second one though. Yeah, it is. I just want to make sure I didn't forget anything. So no, I'm going to go ahead and play Nancy here and we will just kind of talk through it as we go. Let's see what she has to say. I watched this one last night and then I watched the second one this morning. This one came out on the 7th, I believe. And then the other one came out yesterday. So the second video is over the bomb threat and everything that went on in trial yesterday. So because we're like a day behind on my channel. Since we're not watching it live, I haven't been watching it live. I've been watching it a day behind. I feel like I'm a day behind. So, okay, let's go ahead and start the video. If you guys could like this video, when you come in, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We'd love to have you. And if you'd like to become a member, we'd love to have you become a member. And this may be really loud, so you might want to turn your volume down a little bit.
$95% of Uber Eats.
Diamonds, silver.
Crime Stories with Nancy Grace.
The other day when Seckinger was on the stand, this is the lady that worked with Alex Murdaugh that found out he was stealing really millions of dollars from clients in the law firm. Remember, the jury wasn't there. They didn't hear any of that we heard. We actually know more than the jury knows. Well, the judge had a bombshell ruling in court, and that was that this financial motive, financial misdeeds could be heard by the jury. And remember, typically a jury never gets to hear all that. Why? Because it could be considered to be bad reputation or other bad acts, not the murders. That's what he's on trial for, the murders. And that is unconstitutional. But in this case, and in other similar cases, this type of evidence is allowed. Why? Because it shows motive, frame of mind, scheme, course of conduct, and it was contemporaneous. In other words, it was res gestae, all happening at the same time, not some bad thing he did 10 years ago, but happening right then. That was motive for the murders of Maggie and Paul, his wife and son. Man, it better be some good motive to murder your wife and child, and the way he allegedly did it. So we heard that the other day. That's where I started. We heard her testifying outside the presence of the jury. Why? Because the judge wanted to hear all that evidence to determine, is this admissible? Well, guess what? She has been on the witness stand, and she came into that courtroom locked and loaded. Let me tell you, guns a-blazing. She is not parsing words. Let's take a listen to a little bit of that. Christine, can we play cut 5? Let's listen to Seckinger.
Tell me, what was your observation of Alec as a lawyer in the office?
Alec kept different hours than a lot of the rest of us. He came in and he would work late. Always loud, always busy, always in a rush. He had the gift of gab, but he always seemed last minute and hurried and frenetic.
What were your observations of him as a lawyer?
I think Alec was successful more, not from his work ethic, but from his ability to establish relationships and to manipulate people into settlements and clients into liking him. So he did it through the art of bull, basically.
Okay, she got beat. Now, I gave up cussing when I had the twins. I've got an all-star panel lined up to make sense of what we know right now. But let me first go to Mark Tate. Tate is a high-profile lawyer out of Savannah, which is just a hop, skip, and a jump from this courtroom. A high-profile lawyer with Tate Law Group at TateLawGroup.com. Mark Tate, I didn't like anything I just heard, because when I finally, after 3 years of doing something different, I was a law clerk to a federal magistrate. Then I worked in the antitrust division at the FTC and consumer protection. I finally made it to a DA's office, and I immediately got put in indictments. How do you draw up an indictment? How do you read police reports and supplementals and figure out legally what should be charged? And I noticed that there was this guy in the drug unit. He was never there when I was there. I'm like, hey, who's behind that locked door? Who works in there? They went, oh, he keeps odd hours of the day and night. I'm like, oh, okay. Even as a novice, I knew something was way wrong with somebody that had odd hours. And listen, don't get me wrong. My dad worked a swing shift. One night he'd be on the graveyard shift. One night he'd go in. One day he'd go in at 7 a.m. He had all different kind of work hours on the railroad where he worked. So I'm not knocking that, but the way she said it, I mean, if you had a partner in Tate Law Group that would blow in about 8 p.m. at night and nobody knows when he comes or when he goes, no, no, right there, something is wrong.
Well, it wouldn't happen. That wouldn't happen here. I'm a little uncomfortable with you continuing to describe me as a prominent trial lawyer in the Savannah area, because I'm afraid that starts to get a little bit too close to what they're saying about the guy that's on trial for murder now. But I do appreciate the tongue-in-cheek and way in which you proceed with that. But Nancy, this guy clearly...
Don't look at me to come to your aid as a cameo appearance as a defense lawyer. That's not happening. But right there when she said he kept unusual hours, I know what that means.
Yeah.
That means that nobody was keeping track of his work hours, and that he was unprepared and frenetic. He relied on relationships. No, that I don't want a lawyer to rely on relationships. I want them to be prepared and on time.
Well, it's a balancing act. Obviously, Murdaugh played off of his family's name and reputation. He made no secret of that. And what this Miss Seckinger says is she clearly didn't have a whole lot of respect for his lawyerly abilities. She didn't say that he was brilliant. She didn't say that he was a strategic, analytic genius. She said that he was a bullshit artist. And that's her quote. And I think that what that means is his family's been around for so long that he's able to get people to do things. And she said manipulate, which means you're convincing people to do something that's less than in your best interest because of friendships and charm, I guess. But she clearly did not have a great deal of respect for his ability as a lawyer. I suspect from the tone of her testimony that she really never did like him. And she probably never liked him because she thought or felt like he had tripped backwards into a very lucrative and prestigious position just because of his birthright. That's what it sounds like to me. But she clearly does not like
I
him.
never, Mark Tate, you must be a mind reader. You're clairvoyant as well as being a high-profile lawyer out of the Savannah area. Because I didn't pick up that she never liked him. I didn't get that at all. Christine, let me know when we get Ann Emerson hooked up from WCIV. I didn't get that because remember, she worked with Maggie. But now that you're saying it, you might be right because, a leopard, it doesn't change. It spots, right? And if he's that way now, I wonder, I've been doing some digging of my own and managed to dig up a roommate of his in undergrad who said he was an odd duck even in undergrad, that people didn't really want to be around. There was just something about him that was odd and they couldn't really put their finger on it. So I'm just wondering if you're right. But remember, Mark Tate, she very well likely knew Maggie. And by all accounts, Maggie was just a sweetheart of a person because Maggie was a bookkeeper at that firm.
Well, I mean, I've been in private practice for over 30 years, and I've worked in a lot of different kinds of environments and a lot of different law firms. And I can tell you that the lady who is, or the man who's in charge of keeping the books and is the chief financial officer of that firm, they have a lot of relationships, but they have a lot of opinions that they very carefully hold to themselves. And they are by the book if they're successful. And sure, she may be friends with his wife and may be nice to his wife, but that doesn't necessarily mean she has to like or respect him. And the thing that you want to hear from an employee is, this man was a fantastic lawyer. This man had a gift of persuasion in the courtroom. He had the ability to convince people that his point of view or his or her point of view was correct. We didn't hear any of that. All we heard is that he keeps weird hours and, he got where he got because of birth.
He did it all through the art of bull. Her words, not mine.
Correct.
Direct quote. Let me reiterate that again. Listen to this. Another odd moment that we hear from Jeanne Seckinger on the stand. And if you think you got an earful when she was outside the jury presence, oh, I wish you could have been in that courtroom today. Take a listen to our cut 7.
And what is this next page of this exhibit?
That's the canceled check payable to Forge for $83,333.33.
All right, and you recognize that signature on there?
That's Alex.
Okay. And so when we last left off, you were telling Alec that it had been done wrong because it had gone straight from the trust account direct to what you believe to be Forge at the time, correct?
Correct.
And it can't go to the law firm or the tax benefits go away.
That's right.
All right. So you raised those issues with Alec. What was his response when you first talked to him about this?
His response was that he was not worried so much about the tax ramifications of saving the taxes, that he was trying to get money in Maggie's name due to the boat accident that had happened in February of 2019.
Okay. You know what that means? He's trying to hide money in Maggie's name. And he outright says, I'm doing it because of the Mallory Beach boat accident.
95%.
She had a bomb. Is there be some guy
But he'd always
in on? There was just something.
We didn't hear any of that. All we heard.
What does this next benefits go?
Name.
If you've never been here for a Nancy Live, every time I pause her for the first time, she likes to go back to the beginning. So I was trying to pause it and get it back to where we were at. Nuts. Okay. I wanted to pause it. That way we would have it paused.
And he outright.
On-time claim based on latest arrival time shown after order is...
Happy Valentine's Day.
Skunk high as a kite.
See Grace.
Here we go.
For those of you that don't know, I don't want to be too inside baseball. Mallory Beach was a 19-year-old girl that was on a speedboat belonging to Murdaugh, being driven by his drunk as a skunk, high as a kite son, Paul, now murder victim. There's Mallory right there. Beautiful, beautiful girl. Everybody on the boat that night was begging him to slow down. He didn't. And he plowed into some cement pilings, and I've gone and looked at them myself. They're jutting up out of the water. You can see them at a great distance. But somehow, instead of veering around them, he plowed right into them. Mallory was thrown over the edge of the boat. This young girl flies over the side of the boat to her death. She was in the water for days. I talked to the emergency crew that had been out looking for her. And when her body was found bloated with water days later, everybody just started crying. It was awful. So that family, the Mallory Beach family, was suing the Murdaughs. And as we talked about it yesterday, no Paul, problem partially solved. Paul was killed. He was the driver of the boat. So he knows they're going after him for money, after the Murdaughs. So he's trying to put money out of his name and into Maggie's name. Did I explain that correctly, Mark Tate?
Yeah, I think you did. But I think that is, I think that statement to his bookkeeper, it doesn't really make sense to me. And I think there's a big gap in what she's explaining to the jury with regard to the way structured settlements work. And I don't want to bore them any more than, or more bore your audience any more than that jury may be bored by. But I have done work in my 30 years with the real and valid forge consulting. And the way it works is there's an act, the Structured Settlement Act, whereby an injured individual can direct money directly from the payor to an insurance company that pays them an annuity over time that is tax-free. And so it never comes into possession of the firm. And the problem is that she was not talking about the tax consequences to him. The lawyer still pays tax on your fees. She was talking about the tax consequences to the injured party, because if the firm comes into possession of the funds, they're going to fund that annuity before it goes to the client. That destroys the tax benefit of a structured settlement, of an annuity. That's what she was talking about. And I think once again, now listen, no one can dispute that Alex Murdaugh was playing fast and loose with money. Clearly, that was the case. We can't dispute that.
You know what? That's really putting perfume on the pig, isn't it, Tate? Playing fast and loose with money. He stole about $10 million that we know of.
Yeah. So sometimes pigs need perfume. The question is killing his son and is killing his wife, is that going to, and that's what Harpoolian is pointing out, is that going to keep the heat off of him from stealing that much money? And that's what's always worried me a little bit is, first of all, the complication of describing the financial incentive of what he was doing with the fake forge, and also convincing a jury that murder of his wife and son is going to take the heat off of him financially. And that's Harpoolian.
Ann Emerson joining me, senior investigative reporter, WCIV. Wait a minute. Wait for it, Tate. Hold on. Ann, I'm not arguing that it was just the money that was motive for murder. And number one, the state doesn't have to prove motive at all. Number one, let's start with that. And it wasn't just that money. It wasn't that his law firm had just found out, hey, you're stealing millions. That was happening. His whole life was out of control. Many believe that Maggie wanted a divorce. Paul was high and drunk and ended up basically killing a girl with the boat. That was happening. If Maggie got a divorce, she would go into all of his money and find out they were going broke because he was running through the money, and he would be left with nothing. He would get disbarred. He would have nothing left. Plus, according to his own lawyers, he's high on opioids. So everything is spinning out. That's the motive.
And Nancy, it feels like that's exactly how they're building this case, layer upon layer. That's what we're hearing from the state right now, is all of these factors had to play a role. It was, as they said in the opening statement, remember when Creighton Waters said this is the perfect storm, and we're gonna show you how this perfect storm came together. And there's another thing that was happening the day that Paul and Maggie were murdered. Remember, this is also when his father, Randolph, the patriarch of the Murdaugh family, the one who had been, from what we can tell through all of these canceled checks and all this money that's been moving around, that he had been at times taking loans out. That money was gone. Dad was not around to pick up the pieces right now. So you wonder how that was affecting his mental state as well. And from all accounts that we're hearing in that testimony, that's fine.
Maybe you guys know this, but who had like power of attorney over his mother, or who had control of Alex Murdaugh's mother's finances and all of that jazz? Does anyone know? Because with her husband being dead, he would no longer have it if it was her husband, if it was Alex's father. So I'm wondering who had control over her, because remember, she has like dementia or Alzheimer's, something along those lines. I think it was dementia. So with that being said, I wonder who would have, rights over her. Hopefully she gave them to somebody that she trusted before she got dementia, and it wasn't her son. Isabel said her gray hairs are going to be hidden. Mine are hidden from me. They're right back here. I have like a double crown. So they're part of my double crown, and there's one, it'll like stick straight up. And I've got to get it every time. And when you have one eye, it's really hard because your depth perception's off. So you end up pulling out like 100 good hairs before you get the one you're looking for. Queen of the Rap Holes, I'm glad you did too. I hope your surgery goes well. And like one of the best, when I said like the surgeries are awful, the one thing that is good though about surgeries to me, I always feel like when they give you the saline, the IV, when they start to like give you this, it's like saline for like a flush, it flushes you out, it like hydrates you and stuff. I always feel like that just feels so good to me. Like I feel like I'm like reborn after that. I could do anything after surgery, I feel like. It's weird because, well, not anymore, but 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I could do anything after surgery. This last surgery, it wasn't so much. But I will go ahead and start playing Nancy again for us. But yeah, I wonder who had control over her. I might have to look that up. Google that.
Finally going into the courtroom today on these alleged financial crimes. There was an enormous amount of pressure happening that day. You're absolutely right.
And Nancy,
take a listen to more. Go ahead, please.
So Nancy, it actually did buy him about 30 days reprieve anyway, which is not much for killing your wife and son. But it did postpone some of that investigation for 30 days.
I'm hearing the voice of Dr. Michelle Dupree, forensic pathologist, medical examiner, former detective, and author of Homicide Investigation Field Guide. Dr. Dupree, a lot of our viewers and listeners wrote in last night after we talked about one witness describing him as fidgety. And I said, well, he was high on opioids. Don't they make you sleepy? And many of them said they can also make you fidgety, especially if you're trying to come off them. I want to circle.
I noticed she said that yesterday when I saw this, and it made me kind of giggle because when she said the first time that it makes you fall asleep or makes you pass out, I was like, not everybody. So I'm glad she came back and she kind of recanted that. But not, I mean, even if you're not withdrawing off of them or coming off of them, you can still feel like you have more energy. It just depends on the person, really. I feel like. And it depends on the pain medication as well.
Back with you on that. Dr. Dupree. But back to this woman on the stand. I mean, we so-called experts can talk to her blue in the face, but nothing says it like Jeanne Seckinger. Take a listen to our cut 8.
June 7th, 2021, what happened?
Went to look for Alex. He was standing outside of his office leaning on a file cabinet, and he looked at me with a pretty dirty look, one I'd not seen before, and said, "What do you need now?" Clearly disgusted with me. I said, "I have reason to believe that you received the Ferris money directly to you, and you need to prove to me that you did not." And he assured me again that the money was in there, said he was trying to leave it in there to decide what to do as far as structuring some more money or putting more money in Maggie's name. During the middle of our conversation, he took a phone call, and the call was saying that his father was in the hospital. Around 4 o'clock, my phone rang, and Alec was asking me some information about his 401k balance because he stated he had to get some documents and financials together for a hearing regarding the boat wreck later that week.
And you can only assume that he is thinking of raiding his and his wife's 401k, their retirement funds, to pay off the balance on what he was sued. His family is being sued for the boating accident. So everything is spinning out of control exactly when all of this is happening. And then Jeanne gets the realization, Jeanne Seckinger, that it wasn't just one case or two cases. He was stealing millions of dollars. Take a listen to Jeanne Seckinger on the stand. Our cut 10.
And as the canceled checks hit the back of my printer, I could see Alex Murdaugh's signature on the back. It would say Alex Murdaugh, and a lot of them were Bank of America. And as everyone come out, I started noticing it more and more, and the sickest feeling you could feel in the world. I knew that he was stealing all this money. At that point, William Barnes just happened to call over to my office and said, "What are you doing? How are you doing today?" And I said, "I'm about to throw up. You need to come over here." And showed him the checks, at which point he verified that he thought that was Alex's signature as well. The fact that his signature was on the back and the endorsement on the back was Bank of America.
And what did that indicate to you about all those checks when you saw his signature on them?
That they were stolen fees, stolen money.
But then just as Alex Murdaugh is getting confronted about stealing, guess what happens? Take a listen to our cut 9.
I got a call or started getting texts from friends asking if I'd heard if Maggie and Paul had been shot. Nobody knew what was going on, so very scary.
You said this law firm is like a brotherhood, correct?
That's correct.
Did everyone rally to Alex's aid?
We did. Nothing happened that week at work. Everybody spent time with Alec trying to support him, bringing family meals, attending the funerals, so nothing happened all week.
After the murders happened, was anybody at all concerned about getting the proof for those missing fees after those murders happened at that point in time?
We weren't, because we were concerned about Alec. He wasn't working a whole lot. He was erratic. We knew he was taking pills. We were just worried about his sanity, so we weren't going to go in there and harass him about money when we were worried about his mental state.
Okay, if they were so worried about his mental state and he was acting like that, I would think the opposite. I would think that he had something to do with these crimes. If he's acting like erratic and stuff like that at work, and he's just, or not at work, I guess, because he probably wasn't at work, but he's just acting erratic, he's acting different. I'm surprised somebody else didn't come forward sooner, but it's probably because they were so damn terrified.
The fact that his family had been killed.
So Ann Emerson, senior investigative reporter, WCIV ABC, sounds like Dr. Michelle Dupree is right. The murder of Paul, the murder of Maggie, his wife and son, did get him a reprieve from the firm, who was about 3 inches up his tailpipe about all the stolen money.
Well, and Nancy, to be super clear about those cuts that we were just listening to as well, the first and the third cuts, those are both happening around the June 7th period. The second cut, that middle cut that we heard about, that sick feeling that Jeanne Seckinger was having, that happens 3 months later and leads us straight into the Labor Day shooting, the botched suicide attempt. That's when she started, the whole system started unraveling. So you have this first event that the state's trying to set up, that there was an enormous amount of pressure that day when the call comes through about Randolph. Remember, also, Jeanne Seckinger is a very important witness for lots of reasons. She's known Alex since she was 16 years old. She went to high school with him. She ended up marrying, or her sister ended up marrying Russell Lafitte, who was one of his bankers at Palmetto State Bank, who's already gone to federal trial regarding these charges, that he was involved in this whole plot with Alex Murdaugh. So she has a huge cross to bear in this whole thing. Not only that, she's the one that had to confront Alec that day, and she's the one that has already said to the jury, I feel like I somehow have responsibility in this because I didn't catch it sooner. That guilt, that overwhelming guilt, you could see it on the jury's faces. They're watching her and then they're looking at Alec. They're watching her and they're looking at Alec, and they're putting 2 and 2 together. And this is a pivotal moment in this trial because this is the first time we have actually heard these financial charges laid out on the table for the jury. We've heard them for the last year. They have not heard them. And this is extremely important for the state to make their case.
And Emerson, the way you're describing that reminds me so much of when I was trying cases. Nothing else in the world would exist. I'll be looking at the witness and at the jury. Witness, jury. Witness, jury. And nothing else seemed to exist. Did you hear that, Tate? That's not a good sign for Murdaugh, for the jurors to be looking at this witness, then looking over at Murdaugh. Don't you know they've had about a snoot full of him already?
You don't like that. No, clearly this is not a great thing for Murdaugh. Clearly things are going poorly. Julian can only do so much with a cross-examination. And so I think really, at least from a casual or even a lawyer's position observing this trial, you should view it really as perhaps a lesson in examination and cross-examination and how a lawyer will conduct it when maybe they don't have a very great hand to play.
Well, I can tell you one thing, Tate. They better not bully up on this witness because the jury, she's very likable, she's very believable, and the jury is not going to like it if Hart Pullian or some other defense attorney starts wailing on her and getting her upset and bullying her. But guys, today I have 2 more experts for you. One is about a jury consultant, and she is very astute and learned when it comes to tampering with witnesses. We also have a forensics expert to discuss what we're finally hearing about gunshot residue. Now, a lot of us have heard about it, but the jury is just now hearing about all of this. I want to talk to you about bullying the witness. And one witness really touched my heart. I want you to take a listen to our cut 2. This is about bullying witnesses. Listen.
And what did he tell you?
He was at the house.
And I'm not 100% following you. He was telling you or saying to you that he was at the house?
Mm-hmm.
When?
The night of the murders.
The night of the murders?
Yes.
What was he telling you about that he was at the house the night of the murders?
That he'd been there 30 to 40 minutes.
Did he indicate to you what he wanted you to do with that information?
No. No.
What did he say?
He did say that he was at the house for 30 to 40 minutes. That's it.
He said what? Was he there 30 or 40 minutes that night?
Not to my recall.
Why are you crying, Ms. Smith?
Because they're a good family, and I love working there. And I'm sorry all this happened.
Joining me is Christina Marinakis. Not only are you a psychologist or a psychiatrist, I know you're also a JD, but you've got a lot of initials by your name, Christina. But your expertise is jury consulting, strategy advisor. You're the author of Pattern Voir Dire Questions, and you can find her at expertservices.com. Christina, thank you for being with us. What do you make of that witness who broke down crying on the stand after she was bullied? I believe Murdaugh came up to her after Mr. Randolph, his father's memorial. It was at someone's funeral or memorial. He comes up and says, hey, you remember? I was at my mom's house for 30, 40 minutes, right? Right. Okay, bye.
Well, clearly this witness has a close relationship with the family, and that's why she seemed to be so emotional, and she seems torn. I'm sure that she really cared about Alec as well and all the other family members. I think the word bully seems a little strong for what the testimony was. I think there was a suggestion there, and certainly witnesses, their recollection of time periods is very different, not always accurate. So 30 minutes to one person could be 20 minutes to another. I think him saying that seemed off to her, and I believe she called her brother afterwards, so she felt off, but it didn't seem to be threatening per se.
Well, all I know, she called her brother the chief of police in a neighboring county, and she's so upset about what happened, she broke down on the stand and started crying. So the time actually is critical to proving this case, because if he was at his mother's at the time of the murders, then he's innocent. If he's lying about the time, then he's guilty. It's just really that simple. So 20 minutes or 40 minutes makes a big difference in this case. And if she didn't feel bullied, then why is she crying on the stand?
I think she's just overwhelmed from the whole situation.
Okay. So
Nancy, we've had,
is that Tate? Jump in, Tate.
I was just going to say one thing briefly, is we and I and my firm, and when we try cases, we've had the pleasure of working with, top-notch jury consultants like Christina. And, we rely on input of folks other than lawyers to get a feel for the way a jury is responding. And so, lawyers think that we all think that we are the most skilled at forming our questions and judging the way the answers to those questions are interpreted by others, but sometimes it takes someone who is not quite knee deep in it, as perhaps you and maybe even I might find ourselves at this point. But it's interesting that she finds that this is a moved witness, not a bullied witness. And so it's those kinds of things I think a trial lawyer should listen to, perhaps in shaping, the cross-examination of future witnesses. Is it's going to be a person who's going to be emotionally involved with the family, who's going to break down, and be careful of that going forward. So I think she's right. I think she's right.
Certainly not the first witness to break down on the stand.
And Emerson joining me, WCIV, this woman is afraid she's going to lose her job if she doesn't say Alex Murdaugh was at the mother's house for 40 minutes. And I find that to be very, very concerning. And also in the same breath, he said, hey, aren't you about to get married? Weddings are expensive. I'm going to help you with that, all right? I mean, it's just so obvious.
That's what I was just thinking about, Nancy, was that next comment, the way she put it. We don't know the exact timeline, but we know that it was during this very emotional aftermath of Randolph Murdaugh's funeral, who was the patriarch, an incredibly powerful figure in these parts. He was a solicitor, and part of that Murdaugh legal framework that we understand. So you're already dealing with an incredibly strong family. You've got a guy who's a big guy who's like, I could help you with that wedding, and you're getting married soon. So there's like another level that the state was intimating that there was another intimidation going on as well. So that's something that we should keep in mind about this witness. But also that she's doing this in front of Alec. she's doing this right with Alex Murdaugh in the room. I mean, I couldn't help but be watching that interaction once again. It's so important to be able to see what's happening in that courtroom. And I would not be surprised if she did start crying, because she's looking at this man who she's pointing the finger at to some degree, right? On the time frame and the alibi. But remember, there's a very good reason why the state put her up there as well, not just because she can, connect these dots, but this jury is, a majority is female. So what were they doing is they're watching this interaction, this hardened look from the defendant over here. They're watching it very intently. It was really powerful.
And there's more from another witness. Take a listen to our cut one.
Did you see the defendant there?
I did.
And did you have a conversation with him about the boat case?
I did.
All right. You relate that conversation to the court, please.
Yeah. I think, I'm not 100% certain that it was a fundraiser either for Mr. Harpootlian or it was a fundraiser for Lindsey Graham. Alex sees me and he comes across and he gets up close in my face and says, "Hey, Bo, what's this I'm hearing about what you're saying? I thought we were friends." And I replied, "Alec, we are friends. If you don't think I can burn your house down and that I'm not doing everything and I'm not going to do everything, you're wrong. You need to settle this case." The point of it was, we're friends. I took it as he tried to intimidate me. He didn't intimidate me and sort of bully me into backing off.
Straight back out to Christina Marinakis, jury consultant and strategy advisor, author of Pattern Voir dire Questions. Christina, what do you make of that testimony?
Well, now we've got a problem because you've got a pattern. Jurors, what I've learned from doing this, we do focus groups and mock trials, and you could have jurors see the same witness testimony and then come away with different conclusions. But when you have multiple witnesses lining up suggesting the same thing, it creates a more cohesive, believable story for the prosecution.
So how do you think that impacts a jury, Christina?
Well, you said earlier that the state doesn't have to prove motive, but from a juror's perspective, they need to see motive because the lack of a motive to them brings reasonable doubt, and that's really what the defense needs to prove here is just that there's reasonable doubt. That's how you can get a conviction in these types of cases, or get an acquittal.
Guys, we're talking about
Nancy, the plaintiff's lawyer in this case, the fellow who was approached at this fundraiser for either Harpootlian or Lindsey Graham. For Alec to come up to him and try to threaten him in that fashion does only one thing. And I'm the kind of lawyer that represents people who've had bad things happen to them in instances like that for the most part. And if a defendant comes up and tries to harass or intimidate me as the counsel for somebody who we believe is genuinely injured, first of all, it's infuriating. But we also know that we're going to get to cross-examine that person later at a trial or in a deposition and hang them out. And so to me, that just kind of shows that Murdaugh is sort of stupid and thinks that he can get away with anything. And that may be more so helpful to a prosecution, in answering questions a juror might have about why this would happen. It may just be that Murdaugh, just behaves in ways that he thinks there were no consequences for his conduct.
Leonard Romero joining us out of Pasadena, forensic firearms examiner and ballistics expert. You can find him at ballisticsfirearmsexpert.com. Leonard, I want you to take a listen to what we're learning about gunshot residue in our cut 4, about that rain jacket. Listen.
Is this the rain jacket that you were describing?
I can check the bottom cuff. Yes, sir. The date and my initials are here in the bottom cuff.
And tell the ladies and gentlemen, how did you process? Where did you attempt to get particle lists?
Basically the entire garment. We marked it off in different sections, again, where Megan advised me to collect from, and I repeatedly dabbed the particle lift across each section until it lost adhesive.
These particle lifts?
Yes, sir. We also sampled the inside of this garment as well.
Did you test it or take samples from the outside of the hood?
Yes, sir, we did.
Did you take samples from the inside of the hood?
Yes, sir, we did.
When you're examining all of these items, do you wear gloves?
Yes, sir, to make sure we're not contaminating it, as well as to protect ourselves from anything that may be on the garment.
You know, Leonard Romero, you're the expert, but I just want to tell you what my friends on Twitter, Insta, and Facebook told me last night. They said it would be a cold day in HELL if they went hunting in a bright blue poncho or raincoat. And I hadn't really thought of that, but they're right. Okay, so that said, what do you think about Jamie Hall, the scientist that found gunshot residue? What do you think about that testimony?
Oh, she did a great job. Her collection techniques were consistent with the way we would go ahead and collect gunshot residue with these sticky little discs. I've done it hundreds of times.
Could you explain exactly how it's done? It's like lifting baby powder. Could you explain it? It's a very delicate process.
Yes, ma'am. What it is it's primer gunshot residue. Primer gunshot residue comes from the rear portion of the gun when it's discharged. It comes off the primer of the cartridge, as opposed to coming from the front of the barrel. This comes out from the rear or the sides of the firearm. Now, if we look at this case in totality, we've got 7-8 shots that were fired from large guns, shotgun, and of course that 300 blackout rifle. So we've got a lot of gunshot residue in the area, so to speak. So what they're going to do is they're going to take these small metal tabs that have an adhesive on it, and they're going to dab the areas on the clothing or on the individual, and to go ahead and see if they can collect any of these small particles. These particles exist in small spheres, and they're consistent with barium, antimony, and lead. And then they go ahead and put it in a scanning electron microscope where they can physically see the particles, and then they can also chemically analyze the particles to come to the conclusion that it is gunshot residue.
You know, Ann Emerson, WCIV ABC, from where did authorities get the raincoat? Where was it found?
Well, you know, there's a couple of issues with that as well. And one of them is that this blue raincoat wasn't found until 3 months after the murders found at Alameda. Now, according to that witness that we just heard, the one that broke down on the stand talking about her confrontation with Alex Murdaugh, Shelley Smith was the caretaker. And what we learned yesterday was that she was in the house and she hears a knock on the bedroom window at like 6:30 in the morning, and Alec comes in carrying what appears to be a big blue something bundled up in his arms, and he hightails it upstairs to the second bedroom. Now, this isn't an area where she goes very often, so she doesn't, from what we understand, she didn't really investigate it for what it was worth. 3 months later, SLED comes and does a search of the mother's home, Alec mother's home, and discovers this raincoat in the back of the closet. Now, right now, we've just been allowed to bring that blue raincoat into evidence. That was just decided this morning. There was a lot of back and forth between the defense and the state because this witness, Shelley Smith, just wasn't 100% sure what it was. Was it a tarp? Was it a raincoat? So, of course, defense is using that and getting right in there to try and say, hey, we don't even know what she saw. Why are we even using this raincoat that's got GSR on it if we don't even know that it's tied to what happened in this whole timeline of events? So they're going to use that. That's just something we need to be aware of, that is something that the defense is going to use. Is this witness wasn't clear on what she saw. Was it a tarp or a raincoat? So this is going to still come up a few more times.
And so bottom line, the blue raincoat was found at Murdaugh's mother's home upstairs. Is that correct?
That's what we've been told, yes.
And Ann Emerson, what day was it, as it relates to the murders, that this blue raincoat was brought to his mother's home by Alex Murdaugh? What day? The day after the murders? The week after the murders? When?
I want to say this was 3 days after Randolph Sr. passed away. So this was after the murder. So this is the 10th is when he died. Then there was the funeral, and it was after that because the tents were still up.
After the murders of Paul and Maggie.
2023 current Uber One dinner to floral.
Oh, wait, no. Yesterday,
Much more. Happy Valentine's.
night, the night that the care.
Crime Stories with Nancy Grace.
You know, Dr. Michelle Dupree, yesterday, you said something. You said that the caretaker, Alex Murdaugh's mother's caretaker, thought it was very odd that he came so early in the morning. And I went, no, he came late at night, the night of the murders. And you said he also came early in the morning. This is what you were talking about, because I've never heard you make a mistake before in the facts or your analysis. And when you went, it was in the morning. I'm like, no, it was at night, the night of the murders. You're talking about this. And that was odd that he shows up at 6:30 in the morning to go hide a blue raincoat. You are absolutely right, Dr. Dupree.
Yes, Nancy. She said that he had never done that in the 3 years that she had worked for that family, that he had never come early in the morning and only rarely at night.
Absolutely correct. With the odd hours. To Leonard Romero, firearms examiner, ballistics expert, gunshot residue is so easy to get rid of. I mean, you can do like this and it's gone. It's literally like baby powder, or that, or wash your hands. That's why you don't want to let a defendant go to the bathroom on the scene if there's been a shooting, because all he's got to do is wash his hands and it's all gone. It's really a miracle that this raincoat was found still bearing gunshot residue, is it not?
That is correct. It is absolutely correct, because this stuff is transitory. It can be washed off very quickly. Just as you alluded to, suspects, I've had them where they're rubbing their pants to try to get rid of it on their pants, or, you know, they're in a chase, they're running. We lose the gunshot residue. But in essence, he preserved the evidence here, okay, by securing it. The other thing that's of interest here is how the caretaker describes how he was handling the raincoat, as if there was something in it, something was carried in it, or just the way he was holding it, as opposed to, it's just a raincoat, we put it on our arm or put it on our hand and walk with it. So that's kind of an interest as well, but it looks like the evidence was preserved. It's placed inside, it's folded up.
Or, I mean, with me, I would hang it up to let it dry out.
Yep.
Or go hang it in a closet with the other raincoats and coats.
Yeah.
And Emerson, WCIV, is there an intimation that he carried a gun in it, or that he had been wearing it?
Oh, more than an intimation. I mean, I think the objection was sustained, but basically at one point he said, was it like the state was asking Miss Smith, was it like he was carrying a rifle? And she said yes. And they, of course, defense went, objection. You know, we don't know that it was a rifle. And those are the kind of things that they get objected to, but the jury heard it, right? I mean, they heard him say the word rifle.
Yeah, the bell has been rung. It cannot be unrung now. And see, that's where you need a really quick lawyer to jump up before the answer can come in. But she gave the answer. They weren't quick on the draw, pardon the pun. They should have jumped up the moment they heard the question before she could answer. That's what they're getting paid to do. It's like a gunslinger, for Pete's sake. Guys, there's one other thing, and I don't know if everybody caught it or not, but I want you to hear something that's missing. Take a listen to our cut 3.
Can you show these to the jury?
Sir.
Show the jury what you, I'll hold them. Show the jury what you,
So with shoes, when we collect from them, we're going to collect again to the area that would be closest to the discharge of the firearm, so the front of the shoe. So in this case, I would do the area where the laces would typically be and the front toe. Depending on how well the adhesive continues, it will depend on how far back I go, but I start with the toe and then work my area down the sides.
is this the condition they were when you saw them on June 8th, 2021?
There was more grassy type material on them when I had them.
Do you remember, did you see anything that looked like blood?
I did not make any note of that, no sir.
Well, you know, to you, Dr. Michelle Dupree, that doesn't mean to me that he was not there at the time of the murders. It means to me that he changed his shoes. We know he changed his clothes that day. Hey, Christine, do you have the picture of his wardrobe change? The video that was taken that afternoon, he's got on long pants and a shirt. And then that evening when the cops got there after the shootings, he had on a white t-shirt and short. There. Oh, thank you, Christine. You already had that one up your sleeve, didn't you? That's all in one day. Now, if my husband ran in and did a wardrobe change, I would call his mother and say, something is wrong. David is doing wardrobe changes in the middle of the day. He changed his shoes too. Look at that. Whoa. We see his shoes right there. They're, what were they called? And, kind of a slide on loafer. Sperry. Yes, Sperry's.
Oh, those flip-flops.
And then when the cops get there, he's got on the tennis shoes. So, of course, there was no blood. Dr. Dupree?
Nancy, also, we don't know if he has on a T-shirt, or at least I can't tell, under that blue shirt. And if I remember correctly, there were actually 3 gunshot residue particles, found on this infamous white T-shirt. If that was under his clothing, that we don't know where it is now, then that could certainly be something that is significant.
And Emerson.
I was going to show you the clothing difference that he had. So earlier in the day, he had on this like blue colored shirt, loafers, khakis. And then when they saw him later that evening, he appears to be wearing a white shirt with like maybe blue or black shorts. And then he had on like colorful, I believe, like colorful sneakers. If they're the same ones they were showing in the courthouse anyway. Oh, Kelly D, I'm glad that you did too. You know, but you had worse injuries than me. Like, I mean, I have like, I'm missing an eye. I've got metal, but neck injuries and back injuries. Ooh, which I have curves in my back. So I can't say I don't have back injuries, but I couldn't imagine having like metal and inserted or anything like that in my back. Even though I have it everywhere else, I couldn't imagine it in my back.
Tell me about the marks, the spots on his white T-shirt.
Well, once again, that's a huge bone of contention between the defense and the state right now, because the state said that they found blood spatter from an incident on that, like over 100 blood spatter spots on that T-shirt. The defense has been fighting it tooth and nail before this trial ever started. It was the one piece that we thought was going to be just a linchpin to this case, and it hasn't gotten presented yet. We're thinking it's because the prosecution, I think that the state felt like they had done such a good job of, the defense had done such a good job of discounting the expert they had on blood spatter, that they went ahead and we're seeing we feel like we've seen a shift in their focus, and they're now saying that he changed his clothes. So that kind of takes the pressure off of having to bring this blood spatter up again with this T-shirt. So this is what we've heard about the T-shirt in pre-trial motions, trying to get it in, still hasn't gotten in. And I feel like the state has moved on and said he changed his clothes. So whatever was on that T-shirt, if it's transferred, then so be it. We're not going to try and prove anything because we haven't heard anything yet.
But I mean, should I believe Murdaugh or my lying eyes? Because look, he's got on Sperry slip-ons right there that afternoon. And when the cops get there, he's got on a different outfit and tennis shoes that miraculously have no blood on them. Let me ask you another question about gunshot residue. Leonard Romero joining us out of Pasadena. When you shoot a gun, gunshot residue will only fly a very limited distance. How far would it go, Leonard?
We don't know exactly because we don't have the weapons, but it is going to go a limited distance, and it also depends the environment that you're in. If you're fairly closed-in environment, you're going to have a lot of it on you, but it's limited in its distance. You're correct in that, yes.
Long story short, can I just break it down? If there's gunshot residue on that raincoat, that means that raincoat was within at most 3 feet from the gun when it was fired. There. Would you disagree with that, Leonard?
No. Given where it's at also, I would add that it is a distinct possibility that he carried either ammunition components in there or the rifles itself or a rifle.
Typically, it's just a given that gunshot residue will not travel beyond 3 to 5 feet. So, number one, what was gunshot residue doing on the raincoat that the caregiver, Miss Shelley Smith, sees him coming in and hiding upstairs at his mother's house? A lot swirling in the courtroom right now. And when are we going to hear from cousin Eddie, Curtis Edward, aka Eddie Smith, that admits he shot Murdaugh in the head?
Oh, there's so much coming out about that. The rumors are swirling. We definitely expect to see cousin Eddie this week. I thought it was going to be earlier in this week, but we're now thinking that it might get shoved down a little bit down into the later part of this week, just because there's so much testimony on these alleged financial crimes that still need to go through. Cousin Eddie is critical to the state, of course, because I mean, even the defendant's attorneys say that this was his longtime drug dealer. Cousin Eddie also was a relative, two removed, cousins removed. But cousin Eddie has been in his life since, from what I can tell, at least 2013, as a person who he leaned on for all kinds of odd jobs that we're going to hear about, and we're going to hear about his alleged connection to this drug connection. And with Eddie, there's a lot that came out in pretrial. I'm thinking we're going to hear from him for sure by Friday. They've got to get it out there, because I don't think the
word was he was coming on
from what
Wednesday,
I'm hearing right now, will go past much into next week. I think we probably only have another week with the prosecution.
Yeah, if the word is, and we'll see if it's true, because there's a lot of word floating around the courthouse, that Curtis Edward Smith will testify, and I put his lawyer on the hot seat. I knew she wasn't going to answer. That would violate her attorney-client oath. But I think he's going to state that Murdaugh told him he shot Paul and Maggie. That's best case scenario for the state. He might chicken out on the stand and waffle once he's right there in front of Murdaugh. We'll see what happens. But I would say that's pretty much, as you're indicating, Ann, the culmination of the state's case. Hey, Ann, quick question. I've got 100 questions about, is Murdaugh eating something in the courtroom?
No, he's chewing on something, though. I've been watching, too. I think he's chewing on some gum or something. That's what it looked like. But it also is like this weird clenching his jaw. But I think he's been popping a little bit of gum or something and chewing gum. Okay, let me throw that very quickly to Christina Marinakis, jury consulting and strategy advisor.
He needs to take a page out of Simpson, O.J. Simpson, dare I bring that specter up, who sat there and seemed not over the top jovial, but at least friendly toward the jurors. People think he's eating. I had 50 questions pop up on social. What is he eating? Whatever he's doing, he needs to stop for his own sake.
One thing that we tell witnesses, defendants, is that the microphone is always on, the camera's always rolling. You should assume that you are being watched by those juries all the time, from the minute you walk into the parking lot, all the way in the restroom. You always have to be mindful, and jurors pick up on those things. One thing that jurors will take signs of nervousness, like chewing gum or hedging, not making good eye contact, they assume those are signs of dishonesty or signs of being uncomfortable. And so jurors may make conclusions from that behavior that shows he's nervous about what's being set up on that stand.
And also, we've seen him break down crying a couple of times. And I can't help but think he's not crying because he's sorry he did it. He's crying because he's sorry he got caught. Because I'm analyzing, when does Murdaugh start crying as opposed to what's happening in the courtroom at that moment? Is it extremely probative? Is it helping the state? So, Mark Tate, you've tried a lot of jury trials. How do you rate Murdaugh in front of the jury?
Well, I'm glad you asked me that, Nancy. I am, because as we were hearing this story about, the jury doesn't like him chewing or eating, I agree with you, and it reminded me of a trial that I had, and it was in a very small courtroom, and my client was unfortunately an alcoholic, and she'd been the victim of some some podiatric malpractice and lost her toes and her foot. And so we would come into court every morning, and every single morning she smelled like tequila. And the jury was about an arm's length away from me. And I said, Miss Client, please, you got to stop your drinking by midnight, because the jury can smell it coming from either you or me, neither of which is going to help our case. And so y'all are right. The jury does watch. They do absolutely watch the defendant, and they try to read into them and determine, in this case, the defendant, determine how they're acting.
Okay, you're reminding me of an arson I tried, Mark Tate, where a woman burned down an entire apartment complex because she was mad at her girlfriend. And I had an eyewitness that came in. It was August in Atlanta, and she had on a big fake fur hat, and you could smell her a mile away. She reeked of booze. I'm like, I know the jury could see me going, oh dear, woo, woo. Okay, so you never did grade him, Mark Tate, but I can tell you this, he needs to quit eating whatever he's eating at the table.
Yeah. So what? Yeah, I think
Emerson,
that makes it poor up here. However,
yes,
I would say
Emerson,
that if he may have an addiction.
How did I know you were not done yet? Go ahead.
He may be gotten addicted to nicotine. It could be Nicorette. I don't know what the heck he's chewing, but it makes him look bad to be constantly sitting there chewing his cud. It's not good.
Look, if people online on social media think he's eating snacks at the table, then somebody on the jury may think it too, and he needs to stop. Enough said about his snacks. And Emerson, what's happening next? We're about to go back in the courtroom.
Well, we certainly have a lot more testimony to get through, don't we? I mean, this is where the state has to be incredibly careful, in my opinion. We talked about it last night on our podcast on Unsolved South Carolina with Charlie Condon. We were talking about, who was the former attorney general, we were talking about how they really, really need to pay attention to what's going on with the jurors' ability to take in all this financial information. Are they going to be bringing up some of the actual alleged victims right now? We know a lot of those victims, and we've already heard them without the jury present, with Tony Satterfield talking about what happened to his mom. So I'm expecting to start to see some of these guys rolling out before we bring to the crescendo the Cousin Eddie testimony, right? So we are going to work our way through this, but they've caught, as we were talking about, it's sort of like the dog chasing the car or the bus. If they caught the bus. The state caught the bus. They get to bring in all this financial information right now. But what do you do with the bus? You've got to be careful that you don't overwhelm this jury with numbers and facts and figures. It gets boring and tedious. It's a hard sit. So I think they're going to have to get incredibly serious about this.
A lot of times during trials, I would have horrible nightmares during the trials and well after the verdict had come in. And I had one last
time claim based on latest arrival time shown after order is placed. Offer ends 2/19/2023. Current Uber One members not eligible. Subscription will auto renew at $9.99 each month starting.
I hate how Nancy always cuts us off, but I do have the second podcast. I'm going to play it actually in a little bit later on today. I'm going to do like an afternoon live, see if we get more people in here. But I do have another one of hers. So we have people having surgery today. We have people going to the doctor today. There's only 12 people in here, so I think it's just us. I'm like, oh, and if you're watching on replay and you're at the doctor's, hashtag replay at the doctor's, because I'm going to be at the doctor's tomorrow. And I was at the doctor's Monday, and it was terrible. But it's better now. It wasn't that bad. Like, the doctor didn't even put his hand there. She didn't even put her hands on me. She didn't even touch me. She just talked to me. So it wasn't that bad. But so the comments, if you're watching the comment section here on this comment section, my comment section they've been fired up lately. So I like to tell people, if they're really extra fired up and they leave a comment, I like to ask them how they're doing things on their page, and I'll go check it out. And then they usually don't say anything back, which is kind of a shame after that, because then I'm into it. Then I'm going. I'm ready, But I don't understand. I don't understand people. I don't understand why people take the time to message or comment something just really disrespectful and mean when you could put all that energy into doing something else. Like, gosh, it's a lot of energy to be commenting, I feel like. I mean, and they do it just to get a rise out of the creator. Because it is, I mean, it's not very easy to have a YouTube channel. It's really not the easiest. I was actually watching, somebody was doing they did a video over like TikTok and compared to like YouTube, and they're like a creator on both. And they're like, it's so easy to get like a viral video or to get big on like TikTok. It's just like a lot easier. But for YouTube, you know, it's a little bit harder because I guess the content's longer. Retaining your audience is a little harder, things like that. But I'm going to try to do more TikToks. I did do a bunch of pre-recorded videos though, y'all. So if you don't have if you don't have your notifications set to like on all of them, like all notifications, if you don't want to have them on all, don't click all. But if you do, put it on all, because I have a bunch of content coming out. It's a bunch of like pre-recordeds that I'm doing, like kind of breaking down the lives into a little bit of smaller videos. And also I'm doing, I did like some updates. So I did a Madalena Kojikari update. What else did I do? Let me see. I can't even remember now, guys. I did so much. Oh, I have like, everything's all the way back there. Let me see. I did like 7 or 8 videos. I can't think of them right now. I did a Michael Vaughn update. I did one over, you know, the Aiden Fucci, he pled guilty. And then, you know, I did a couple over Brian Kohlberger, and those were ones that we did it over the live. And I put that in the beginning there. But some of them are scheduled, and then some of them are already up. So a lot of them are up. Let me see. Since yesterday, I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 7. And there'll be 9 altogether by tomorrow. So I've been busy working. I'm a busy girl. I've been trying to be anyway. I love sarcasm. It really, you know. Oh, they were coming in hot. I almost took my earrings off when Summer said, yeah, they were like, I couldn't even get to everybody. Like on the one post where, you know, Ethan Chapin's brother or sister-in-law came out post, and then I was second guessing myself. And then then I saw the obituary and I'm like, no, Tanya, he does have an older brother. That's a half brother, that he has 2 of those that are both married. So it was literally, they came for me in that post. I had like 90 some comments when I woke up the next day, I think, after posting that, which isn't a lot, you wouldn't think. But if you're like me, I'm not a fan of tedious work. So after I see the first couple of people trolling, I'm just like, I'm over the comment section. I'm just like, I'm over it. I used to, I almost gave it to Vincent once upon a time to do. I literally almost passed it off to him because I was becoming really mean. It was just, you know, when someone says something, when someone says something, you should be able to just brush it off. You should. And like, at first it's kind of hard. I'm not going to lie about that. And I don't have a whole lot of trolls, but couple videos, I was like, whoa, that's a lot more than usual. So I don't know. I do, Lawnmower Man. I think the prosecution is doing a good job. I do. I think that they are. I think that this case is in the bag. I think all like 90 some cases they're going to end up having. He's going to plead guilty. I don't think he's going to plead guilty, but they're going to end up going to trial. Now, my thing is, I wonder, since the judge let the financial crimes come in through him, if he's going to have to sit there through all of these different cases, because that would be terrible. I would feel so bad for that judge. It is haters, yeah. And it's just going to get worse the bigger I get. But I was in the gym the other day, and I looked at my comment section, and someone wrote a comment, and it was kind of mean or something. And it made me do an extra set. I was like, I almost started bringing the comment section to the gym, y'all. I like the judge, too. I think the judge is really, he seems really sweet, really nice. And they did show it over a lot, actually, and Nancy Grace did. I have my notes here. I was taking some notes. And then I do have another video, a Nancy Grace video. I think I'm going to come back on and do it later this afternoon before, I think I'm going to do it at like 4 o'clock, like a weird time, like a random time. Because then it'll get us all caught up till today. Like whatever's going on in court right now, it'll get us caught up at least till that. So And then I can do another video on that. And then I'm going to do a video actually on Delphi case. They have like a little, he had a bond hearing, he's trying to postpone his bond hearing. So I'm going to do a video on that. I'm trying to get caught up with my videos and stuff. And then if you guys know of any new cases you want me to cover, let me know and I will. I know that there's some out there. And then I know there's some older cases that we're just kind of waiting to see what happens through the court system. Yeah, exactly. And so I just got it. Like, I literally was going to give, this has happened twice where I've almost given Vincent reins over something. So, and I'll admit this. I hate, so I used to work in a boutique. This is going to make me sound so bad. So don't hate me for this, guys. But I used to work in a boutique and I used to hate it. I was always there by myself. So I was always the person selling the stuff. And I was blood, sweat, tears into this place. So when someone would come to return something, it would make me feel like I did something wrong. Do you know what I mean? And I just took it to heart to where it started to, instead of making me feel bad, and sad, I would get pissed off instead. Why are you bringing that back? I would just get so defensive. And so when I started my own business, I almost let Vincent do all of my returns. I don't ever have returns, which is great, but that's so great. But he's really good at just doing that kind of stuff. I'm impatient. I'm one of those people. I'm like, what did I do wrong? What did I do? Was it me? And I know that's not the case, but I think it's because when I worked in the store too, it was literally blood, sweat, and tears in that store. I walked into that store weighing, if this tells you anything, I walked into that store weighing 145 pounds. I walked out of that store weighing less than 110. And they didn't know anything was wrong. They still didn't think anything was wrong with me. They still didn't see what the problem was. I was like, guys, hello, you guys don't see the problem here? So that's when I ended up quitting my job and I started my own boutique. And that'll actually be 2 years in April. So a couple months from now. And I swear, I'm so glad that I am so fortunate. Let me say that. I am so fortunate that I am able to stay at home and do YouTube. And it's not I'm lucky enough to have Vincent to where he can go to work and we are beyond fine. Do you know what I mean? I don't need to cry to you guys, scream at you guys, yell at, beg you guys for stuff. I just been hearing a lot of that lately. So just want to tell you, guys are awesome. But yeah, I'm just fortunate enough to not have to think of, that's what I try to remind myself. Because if you don't have the means to do YouTube and you're this is this is how I'm making all of my money. Well, shoot, we need to get you a job or something. This is a job. This is a hard job. This is harder than any job I've ever actually had, but it's the most rewarding. It's the funnest too. You get to meet new people from all around the world. Your channel gets to grow. If you're, a decent channel, you get to see yourself grow. Your people get to see you grow. And your people get to see you grow not only as a channel, but as a person. I feel like I'm growing as a person too. With you guys. I feel like you guys are teaching me things without even knowing it. You guys are. But I think I'm going to come back on at 4:15. I was going to work out, but I don't think I'm going to. I said that the other day and then I went and worked out, but I'm just not in the mood. I go to the chiropractor again tomorrow. It's been months since I've went and I really need to go. So I did tell you guys about those videos, making sure. And then I have my notes for later. That's what Summer loves about being self-employed. I can't have a boss because I don't like rules. You're like me and I can make my own work schedule. I'm a rule breaker, which you guys have already seen that on the channel. They're like, don't play that. I'm like, I'm going to play it. But it's hard. I try to keep it real. And I always will with you guys. I will. And like I said in the chat earlier, today marks 9 years since my car accident. And yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. It feels like yesterday, and then it feels like it's been forever, like I said in the chat at the same time. I thought it was 10 years this year, so I was going to do, well, I'm still going to do something for it, but I was going to do something like huge, like TikTok thing, like where I was going to be like 10 years, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, it's only 9 years. I'm the worst at counting. I'm a good boss. I'm not a good employee. Like, you know what I mean? I'm not a good like worker. If I'm not the boss, and I'm not even bossy. That's the thing. The thing of it is, I do all the work. I love to do all the work. This is going to sound stupid, but I like to do all the work and let it show in my people. You know what I mean? Like, I like doing that. Like, when I had my own like boutique outside of my home, like when I was in store working, that was the deal with my employees. I'm like, just show up, because we couldn't get someone to show up to save our whole life. Just show up. Sell some stuff. You know what I mean? Don't worry about putting anything back. Don't worry about cleaning. Don't worry about resetting tables or walls or any of that. I will do all of that in the morning. Just work on selling. It wasn't that hard. I actually walked up to my store one day and there was a naked mannequin and she was like falling over. And some girl had worked there from another store the night before. And I was just like, oh, I was like, apparently she couldn't hang over here. Because I was a curvy girl store too, so that made it even better. You know, to me, I loved it. But to people that were coming in that worked in straight sizing only, never worked in a curvy store before, they were in for a treat. One girl came in and was crying so hard, I guess, and screaming, "Where is Tanya?" And this was a plus size girl. So this girl was curvy too. So this girl should have been able to have been like, help her, you know, like she shouldn't have needed little old Tanya. But she said, "Where is Tanya? She knows my body." She was screaming, "She knows my body." And I was like, I love that. It made me feel really good though. Because I was such a smaller girl too. And I was like, see, I know my girls. Your salon's name's Karma. Oh my gosh, that is so fun. My sister-in-law does hair. And she's done it for like, oh my gosh. I don't want to say her age wrong, but I want to say she's 45. She don't look like she's 40. She doesn't look a day over 30. But she started when she was like 17. She did that where she could go to like trade school to do it. I love that she does hair, which she hasn't done my hair. I have not colored my hair. My hair has not touched a chemical other than I got one perm in the last 15 years. One perm, that was it. And I'm scared. I need to get it colored. My sister-in-law said she would do it for me. She's like, "Oh, do it for free. Just like consider it as part of your Christmas," which she will do. She would do it anyway for free. But I'm thinking maybe some highlights because of the grays, but I'm not there yet. I know when summer hits and I see them more, then I'll be like, yeah, need them done. But I think I'm just going to go with like some light brown or brown. Like, I don't know. I want to match it up to my color as much as possible. I like my color of my hair. But I am going to jump off of here. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today. It was such a small group, but you know what? I like it like that sometimes. More people will come in later. They'll watch it on a replay if they decide they want to. You've done it for 17 years? She's done it for like, yeah, she's done it forever too. And she left doing it. She left doing hair. She's like, I don't want to do hair anymore. You could tell she was burnt toast. Like she didn't want to do hair. And she went into doing, she went to school. Her and my brother went back to school together. And then she went and got her degree for domestic violence, like counseling, being an advocate, doing all of that kind of stuff. And and this is why I think she went back to doing hair. Hearing somebody on their worst day every single day of their life. Do you know what I mean? Like working in domestic violence, like you're seeing somebody on their worst day pretty much. Like one of their worst days. So I think she went back to hair because it was still like, she's still helping people because she's still like a therapist being a hairdresser because we tell you ladies everything, but it's more fun to her, if that makes sense to you guys. You know what I mean? It's like little petty problems like, oh, Nancy Grace and her husband, I'm just saying that, not you really, Nancy, but you know, got in an argument last night and like blah, 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 she kicked him out. Like, you know, it's funnier like kind of stuff. It's more lighthearted. So I think that's why she went back to doing hair like on Saturdays. So she does it all on Saturdays. Was it called balayage? I'm going to have to write that down. She'll probably know what that is, but I don't know what that is. I need some more hair, actually. You know how I can get some more? Let me know. They say not to wash it every day, but your girl has to wash it at least every other day. I've got fine hair, and if I don't wash it every day or every other, it looks greasy. Greasy. And I haven't had hot water in the last 3 days. We've been going without hot water. It gets hot for like 10 minutes, and then it just stops. So they're coming in to look at it tomorrow. So, they are. You guys are like therapy. You guys are a little bit of everything, really. I know that. I mean, when I worked as a server bartender, when I bartended, I was a therapist to people. Oh, they would tell you everything. Okay. Well, I do need extensions, but I'm just not there with the money yet. Like, that's so much money. I know Vincent would do that though if I just ask him for like Valentine's, or our anniversary is the 28th. I just asked him to go. I'm giving it like what? So what are you guys doing for Valentine's? Since I forgot to ask you guys about Valentine's. And something's coming up. What are you guys doing for Valentine's Day? Anything in particular? We don't do shit. We don't. We're like homebodies. We usually will just like maybe go shopping or do something like that together. But we're not like where it's not a huge deal. One year he did pick me up and he like in the car he had a huge stuffed elephant, like animal elephant. And I was like, it's so cute because we had a dog named Ella at the time. I said, but don't ever get me a stuffed animal again. Like I don't do stuffed animals because then they just sit there and like, what do you do with them? Like just put them on your bed or something? I mean, so now it's in a plastic container. So he's not good at flowers. He's good at everything else. He's not good at flowers though. So and I'm glad because I get something way better. He'll take me and get me like all new makeup or all new skincare stuff and instead of flowers. So Valentine's Day is kind of overrated. I think I like it with us because our anniversary is in the same month, but we usually just try to do something like, like small. I think that this year I told him this year he can get me 2 new pairs of Birkenstocks, just a brown pair and a black pair, because I've worn mine out. I've had them for 4 years now, maybe 5. I'm wearing them right now. I wear them in the house. I wear them outside the house. If anybody has back problems or you have problems with walking, I truly recommend Birkenstocks. I don't recommend them if you have I don't recommend I recommend like wearing them in slowly, very slowly. But with my back and everything, they've really helped me. And I have high arches in my feet, so they help me inside the house. They make my metal feel better. So I went through these. So I was like, I told him I'll go half too, like on both pairs. So he's like, really? I'm like, I'm going to let you get off pretty easily this year. 2 years ago, a lady brought me a huge bouquet of balloons to my store. I thought that was so sweet. The men should buy gift cards from my boutique. I'm going to have to put that up there. Go to Poppy and Ari. Put the boutique up there too. And go buy some. I do have gift cards there. I need to get some actual plastic cards, but I do like regular gift cards for now. The plastic cards are kind of expensive. But I am going to jump off here. I'm going to come back on, I think, a little bit later and do the rest of the Nancy Grace podcast because there is like a second half to this, and we'll see if we can bring some more people in. But I will see you guys all in the next live. I'm going to go let the dogs out. How long has it been? Oh, it's only been an hour and 32 minutes since they've been out. They good for a minute. I'm going to go relax for a second then. Bye, guys. I'll see you guys later.